What's going on, good people of the internet? It is time once again for Comics Unmasked, the podcast where a bunch of folks shoot the breeze and talk about comic books and such. I had the pleasure of sitting down with writer of the Cyborg miniseries from a few years ago, the current writer of the Green Lantern Corps series at DC, as well as one of the co-writers on the new history of the DC Universe, the Dakota Incident, Morgan Hampton, to talk about everything that he's been doing at DC over the past few years. From writing his own short stories to then being part of the Milestone Initiative to then being able to co-write with Jeremy Adams before taking over on Green Lantern Corps. This dude has been killing it when it comes to writing these stories, and it was a pleasure to sit down with him and talk about the history of Milestone and talk about how much it means to both of us and seeing what has become of it, talk about the issues with Black representation in comic books and what the future looks like for all of us. I really hope you guys enjoy this interview. Check it out. But
Cool.
thank you for being here. Like for real. Like the fact that I was able to get another person from this one shot to be a part of this, but also just I've been a
Yeah,
fan of your work for so long. Thank you for like coming down for the show.
man. Yeah, thank you. This is what it's all about. Reaching out to people and talking about the craft. Like you guys are why we're here. This is what we do it for. So and I wasn't like an influencer or podcasting and anything, but I used to be on your side of the table in the sense of like I started out at Black Nerd Problems back in the
Oh,
day.
okay.
So I used to be across the table interviewing like Scott Snyder and David Walker and guys like that. So like I understand, your hustle a little bit as well.
I must say, yeah, I've been doing this off and on for since 2016. I used to like envy Black Nerd Problems because
Yeah.
they seem to have all the connections. I ran my own website for a little bit, and then I got into streaming, and now I'm just now coming back into this. And the game has changed significantly, where stuff is so much more accessible. But it's like,
Yeah.
but like knowing that you had that little bit of background, it's kind of nice because it's like, what was your origin? What was the book, the first book that you picked up and was like, comics are for me? What was that first one? I always like joke around and tell people that like
Yeah.
my mom got me Batman the Colt that scarred me for life. But like, what was the one that really got you into the medium?
Yeah. I'll give you two answers. One, I'll say there was no particular book. My dad had a bunch of long boxes in his basement, and I would just go through that and look at the pictures, if I'm being honest. Like when I
Oh,
was
okay,
really, really young, I was familiar with the characters, and I think I never had the stamina to read like novels as a kid. Like I couldn't
okay,
do the Harry Potter, I just couldn't.
right,
So I that going through those boxes and just kind of picking up random issues, not knowing really anything that happened prior, and just like admiring what I'm looking at was really what initially got me into it. And then as I got older and started paying attention to the stories more, this is a crazy out of left field answer. There was a before the Absolute Universe back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
mm,
DC had another kind of like line of comics that were alternate versions of the characters you know and love. It was called
right,
Tangent Comics.
yeah, I remember
It
that.
was
Yeah,
by Dan Jurgens. Basically, they gave him the keys to make his own universe, right? Like Superman was a black shaman who had a bald head. The
yeah,
Flash had like light powers as opposed to speed force powers, and like I said, I was very familiar with the characters, and seeing these different versions of them kind of introduced me to the idea of like the multiverse,
right,
and it just like rewrote my DNA, and I was like, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen in my entire life.
okay.
So from that point forward, I was like, I need to get my hands on anything and everything because this stuff is really cool.
Okay. So like
Yeah.
from that era, do you like besides like that specific universe, was there ever a specific comic that made you go like this is the one I'm gonna read? This was the ongoing you wanted to collect? Like cuz for me, I had all
Yeah.
of John's as Teen Titans. So like what
Yeah.
was the one that made you really want to like
Yeah.
collect and dabble and whatnot?
Honestly, it would be around that same time, that mid 2000s, when Johns was on Teen Titans. That was a great team.
Yes.
Like it was a little bit before Static was briefly on the team, but like
Mhm.
who was it? Ravager. They had Kid Devil.
Yeah.
Like that was a crazy team. I love that team. That was when we got introduced to that version of Superboy as well, the
Mhm.
Connor Kent one. That definitely, I was definitely, I remember keeping up with that then. Back in the day, I don't know if they still do this, but DC and Marvel, you could have mail subscriptions with
Mhm.
them, and that was one of the books I was getting monthly that was delivered in the little plastic bag to
Yeah.
my mailbox. And yeah, going back to John's too, like that his run of Green Lantern in the mid 2000s as well, something I kept up with.
Mhm.
I remember being really swept up into like 52 back in the day.
Yeah.
That was huge. Yeah, all that stuff. Booster Gold was big at that time too. Yeah, all
Mm.
that stuff I was keeping up with. Yeah.
Okay, okay, and it was funny too because like I saw a video where someone had mentioned you a while back, and I felt like a kindred spirit with you because you and I are both members of a very established club, the I Hate Hal Jordan Club, um, or as I like to call it, the Hal Jordan Ain't Shit Club. Like,
Oh man.
where did your like hatred for Hal Jordan spawn?
All
Because
right,
I
listen.
gotta know.
Let me yeah, let's talk about this because when that happened, those are tweets I tweeted like 10 years ago,
Right,
man.
I got you.
Before I even knew this was any like ever gonna happen.
Mhm.
Um, it's funny. I'll just tell you the whole story about that in particular.
Okay.
Um, I'm at the time it was announced I was going to be co-writing with Jeremy on Green Lantern Corps. I
Mhm.
think maybe the first issue would come out, and people were like, "Oh, this is pretty good," and everyone's like, "Who the hell is Morgan Hampton?" Because no, I know you know me. I know you know me from Cyborg, and I've done a book at another publisher. But like, people are still even now, getting to know me a little bit,
Mhm.
right? So they see this name co-writing with Jeremy, and they're like, "Who is this guy?" And the first thing I feel like the first thing they did was type in my name on Twitter with anything that could be damning for me.
Mhm.
And that's what happened. I'll say this: I do not hate Hal Jordan. I think
Oh, man.
where I was coming from at my very young age on Twitter at the time
Mm.
was, I think coming from a very similar space that I've seen you come from, and a lot of other influence, asking for some these black characters to have more agency
Mm.
and all that. I'm coming from like at that time. I'm like, okay, we've always had Hal Jordan having the spotlight,
Mm.
right? Can we switch it up? Can we give someone else the reins a little bit and explore something? And then we're talking about at the same time they're talking about whatever adaptations they're going to do and how would be the main character for that. And it's the same thing. So it was never like
Mm.
fuck Hal Jordan. I hate him as a character. It's the system in which he exists that allows him to thrive and sometimes doesn't allow other people to thrive. That is
Right.
what I was really having an issue with.
That's fair.
You know
That's
what I
fair.
mean?
And like, and I've always kind of been in the sort of same boat because I've always said that like the return of Barry and Hal created this stagnation in the DC universe that we've
Yeah.
never really recovered from.
Right.
And like even back then, I always would say that like Hal coming back was a mistake because I was a kid like reading John's Teen Titans. I was like reading Kyle Rayner here and there, and was like, this is comfortable. We're moving
Yeah.
forward. Like Morrison's
Right.
Justice League moved the universe forward. We had Wally and Kyle and whatnot. So when I even heard about the whole controversy, I was like, you know what? I feel for him. I'm here for like I felt that like because like even recently I dropped the hot take that Hal Jordan wasn't shit and people lost their minds. So like I appreciate you.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, I used to be on your side of the table and just like clamoring for some type of change, some type of representation, some type of like, what can we do differently?
Mm,
And Hal Jordan's not the only character that represented that for me. There's I think comics has an issue of like you said, stagnation.
mm.
It can at times like it's one step forward, maybe five steps back. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it can be frustrating. Absolutely.
That's a great way to look at that. Now, I brought something specifically for the next part of this conversation. We gonna just
Oh
we gonna put the
man,
cyborg hat on for a minute.
that's a nice hat. I'm gonna need that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
it's the
you
new
need to
era
buy me that
Justice
hat.
League cyborg hat. Like I had
Okay.
the biggest ass head too. I had the size 8
Yeah,
because I
that's
have
a
a big
nice
ass
one.
head.
That's
But
a real nice hat.
and I even like dug this at the long box for you because
Oh yeah.
and it's crazy too because like you are the fifth person to ever get to do a cyborg solo scene like anything
Mhm.
Because Wolfman did the one shot, then you had I forget who like there was one more person before the new 52, then David F.
Wait, I have it. I have it. Hold on. Let me go over here real quick.
It because I think I actually have it
Did I
somewhere in
move
my
it?
room.
I moved it. It's not in here. Oh wait,
Like
it's
I forget oh
this
yeah,
one.
yeah, Josh Sable. Yeah, it was Josh Sable,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
it was David F. Walker, and then and I see it over on your wall, Johnny Semper Jr. Like,
Yeah,
like how does that feel to be in like such a prestigious club, being one of the five people to get to tackle Vic in that
yeah.
way like that?
It's an incredible honor,
Mm.
and I also think it's incredibly sad that there's only been 5
Yeah.
people. Um, but yeah, to be able to follow those footsteps, like Marv, I've told this to someone, I don't remember who, it was a podcast I did not too long ago. People don't know this, but Marv, at least for that first issue that I did, he gave notes. Like
Wow.
they brought him in. I think they brought him in to have a little bit more involvement than he ended up having,
Oh, okay.
because he in real life he got like injured and then he wasn't
Mhm.
able to keep up with things. But he gave notes, and honestly, they weren't like Vic wouldn't say this, Vic would say this type of notes. It was more so he was giving me like how the meat is cut notes. Like, hey, you
Mm.
these are things you want to be mindful of, like for page turns and pacing on a page and stuff like that. And that was invaluable. So that was really cool. And then David Walker is like a mentor for me. Like
Wow.
he's
He's one of my
someone when
heroes,
I
so the fact that you got to meet with
he's the
him is
best.
amazing.
He's the best, man. Like when I first wanted to break into this industry, I sent him a cold email. I
Wow.
found his email and I was just like, essentially what it boiled down to was how can I be you? Right. And to his credit, like he answered me the next morning. I sent it at like 8 at
Wow.
night. He answered me the next morning. He gave me a bunch of tips, a bunch of books to go read. Um, and he told me like the most valuable thing he told me was start small, right? Work on short stories. Don't try to do your big magnum opus for your first thing because you're going to get stuck and you're never going to progress. If you can do short stories, you can get your reps in, and then you bring something to completion, you get better each time. So I did that.
Right.
And so yeah, and then going back to your question again too, um, something that was that I internalized when I was working on Cyborg was I was the youngest person at the time when I like youngest person while writing Cyborg to be that young while writing it.
Mhm.
Um, and I think I might have been the first millennial to write Cyborg.
Wow.
And that felt important to me because to me, Cyborg is a hero for the 21st century. I know he's from the
Most
80s, but
definitely.
like he represents a lot of the world that we have progressed into since he's been made. And I really wanted to lean into that, but I also really wanted to lean into like what it feels to be in your late 20s, early 30s
Mhm.
from someone who's going through it as opposed to who went through it 20 years ago for themselves.
Right, yeah.
So that was important to me, and that was a sense of pride as well. Yeah,
Okay. And like you kind of entered in a weird time period because like it's you basically came in at the time where DC's just like screw it, everything's canon. And you have to sort of navigate that idea where Vic in one timeline was a part of the Justice League, in another timeline they sort
yeah,
of like re-merged his canon with the Titans, and it's like
yeah,
how do you not invalidate the fact that he was made into a movie star essentially, because like obviously with the movie version of the Hat, and it's like
yeah,
how do you not invalidate what John's tried to do and put him on another echelon, but also
hmm,
like keep true to the Titans fans and things of that nature. What was that like
yeah.
conversation like?
Well, first to what you just said, I'll say shout out DC Rebirth.
Mm,
Because that's why that's been the case for a lot of these things. It's just how do we mesh everything that's happened before. Um, yeah, that the funny thing about that is my intention going into this book was never really to address that. Like, if I can be
mm,
perfectly frank with you, like I think I even know exactly what you're talking about. There's a double page spread in that first issue where I kind of addressed that he, started off with the Justice League and then found
mm.
his footing with the Titans. That was an editorial note, you
Mm,
know, and like happy to do it, sure, but like that wasn't really anything that I was like, I need to put this in there.
mm,
It was editorial. I think it's editorial wanted to smooth things over and kind of make sure people knew exactly what was up. And I
right.
think that's what's funny about comics too. People yell online because writers are top billed, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to blame editors for anything, but like sometimes
It do be
decisions that are made,
editorial, it don't be you.
yeah, sometimes decisions that are made like they're above our heads,
Mm,
and for better or for worse, we got to eat
right.
that. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, with comics too, stuff happens and then it blows over. Like I don't
Mm,
know if people are really losing sleep over that right now. Maybe they were
mhm,
when the issue first came out, but I do think it is somewhat important to address that these things happen.
right.
I think that's the tricky thing about canon sometimes with retcons. It's like we can say things didn't happen, and then it's just like, okay, well, the story that someone spent half a year or a year telling now is invalidated. So like, what does
Right.
that mean? So yeah.
It definitely was very interesting because, like, you saw even with Rebirth, like they finally wanted to put Vic into Troy, do his own thing. You started to like explore his humanity with the machinery, and then the book just ends with a Beast Boy team up when they really didn't have any like canon thing going on, and
Mhm.
then we just stopped having Vic in a solo book because it didn't sell well, and that was probably jarring for like Semper Jr. at the time. But then you
Yeah.
saw him kind of just go off into Justice League Odyssey, and they're like, "Hey, there's a history here," and it was just like, "What?" So when you
Yeah.
come in and it's just, "Oh, back to the Titans," like nothing ever happened. It was like, I enjoy this, but I still felt like something was missing. And what was really awesome is your writing definitely made it feel like you could just go back into that 90s Titans era and have that
Mhm.
cushion and that vibe. It felt like you understood Vic more than other people do. And that was really awesome to see.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what I approached. I mean, he's always been one of my favorite characters.
Hmm.
So writing, getting to kind of tackle him with my first book is like to this day, like that's crazy. That's a dream come true. But I really resonate with Vic because I have hemophilia, which is a bleeding disorder.
Right.
If you remember 10th grade biology class, the 1 week you spend on this, it basically means I don't my blood doesn't clot, right? So I don't
Right.
heal from injuries without the assistance of medication. I like to call myself like the worst X-Man, the polar opposite of Wolverine.
Right.
So because of that, I have my own like I grew up with my own negative perception of the body that I inhabit, right?
Hmm.
And I really, I don't have the outward presenting ailments that someone like Cyborg has, but I always resonated with the internal struggle
Got
of
you.
trying to
Okay.
fit into, the cards that you've been dealt. So when I was writing him, I was writing a lot of aspects of myself.
Right. It was very interesting too because like it's always very difficult when it comes to machine-based characters, or even we've seen difficulties with Batman Beyond to a certain extent exploring future concepts. You explored AI in a very interesting way. The idea of, like, we even saw recently that's been in the news, the idea of people making AI bots and dropping them into a social network and seeing how that developed. But then even in your story, you kind of explored when the AI of the internal mind becomes its sentient, and it hates its own existence and doesn't understand why it exists. So that idea of there having Vic explore that and be like, "Hey, if I'm still here, so could you. You don't have to stop living." It was a very interesting dynamic. Like, what was that talk with, especially with a first book like that? Did editorial like put any guardrails up? Were you not allowed to do certain things, or like were they very like supportive of the narrative?
Yeah, I think they were very supportive. I'd say like 95% of what you read is what I pitched.
Wow.
The big 5% or the big 4% is killing Silas was my
Mm,
editor's idea. And
okay.
I was like, but it fit what everything I wanted to do, so it was perfect.
Right.
And then the other 1% is that acknowledging that he was part of the Justice League before the Teen Titans. But everything
Mm,
else, like there were no guardrails. They let me do what I wanted to do. And I think for better or for worse, I was able to have that agency with this book is because no one's checking on Cyborg like that. I don't have a lot of canon that
mm,
I need to like be particularly stuck to. So,
right.
a Batman book would have had a lot of guardrails, but a Cyborg
Mm,
book, let's do it, right? So,
right.
and that was my goal coming in. I was like, I love this character, but also Cyborg hasn't progressed really any since he was created in 83 or 84 or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, like there's been times like yeah, there was the whole like Siberian arc where like he got
Yeah,
fused into a spaceship and whatnot. But other
yeah,
than that, he like the most we ever got was we someone put an alien in him. They did the whole
right,
Siberian thing, or they did the mother box thing. It's just
yeah.
the only thing we ever really did to make him interesting was put aliens in him.
But even then, I guess I'm always approaching things from the human aspect or the emotional aspect, right?
Mm,
So it's like things may happen to Vic, but how is he rationalizing them? How is he overcoming them? I never
mm,
felt like Vic has really overcome any problems that he's had in his
yeah.
40-year existence. So my goal was his two main ones were always, oh my God, am I a man or a machine? I was a football player and now I'm the cyborg. What can I do? I hate that argument. Let's
Mm.
get over that. And then the other one was like, oh my God, I hate my dad because he turned me into cyborg. Those are the two cyborg stories that were just done over and over and over and over and over again.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna come into this book and we're gonna address those two things.
Right.
But from my perspective, we're gonna they're gonna be done. We're gonna
Mhm.
resolve them. Victor's gonna overcome them.
Love
And
that.
now, from this point forward, he can have new things that he has to overcome. And
Mhm.
I tried. I think I achieved that,
Most
but that was
definitely
my
you
goal.
did. Yeah,
That was my goal.
you definitely did that, especially with the idea of the AI taking sentience. You made Vic have to explore that and appeal with his humanity to them, and it was a really
Yeah,
cool way that you did that in that aspect. And like wow, you just like my heart because like I've always felt like that even in those early runs with like Walker and Semper. It felt like we couldn't just move on. Like the best issue of Semper's was when he went to a jazz club and he
yeah,
felt his humanity again. But even here, you have him like finding other like humans and being with them again, and actually finding like that connection. And I
yeah,
loved that you did that. You actually tried to help him rebuild his own territory in Detroit, and it's like I kind of want to see more. And like, has there ever
yeah.
been talks of you revisiting that in an ongoing to a certain extent?
Um, yes and no. Before I even answer that, I do want to say timing is everything.
Mm,
I got very lucky that I got this book when I got it because again, being close with David, I don't know John personally, but I know basically up until the point that I started at DC, they had different a different regime back then. So
right.
like, the things that you may have wanted to see in a cyborg book, they probably did have a lot more guardrails.
Mm.
And to David's effect, like I've had conversations and he's been very outspoken in real life about this. Like
Right.
he
I've seen what
absolutely
he said. Yeah.
he absolutely had like everything he wanted to do was like, nah, we're gonna do this instead. So like for
Yeah.
those books to not reach where they could have, absolutely wasn't those creators' faults.
Mm.
And I just got really lucky that under this new regime at DC, I was able to have the agency that I got on that book. To answer your question, oh, it was have I ever had conversations? I recently after finishing the book, I was invited to pitch another arc.
Ooh.
This was like 2 years ago at this point,
Right.
so
Yeah.
clearly it didn't happen.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but I do think me and my editor Marquise Draper,
Mm.
like we both love that character. He's editing the Titans book right now, I
Mm.
believe, so he's still with Vic in some capacity. I would love to come back at some point and do more with him because again, my goal with that book was to get him to resolve issues.
Mm.
Now let's push him forward into new territory, and I'm really interested in the idea of obviously Vic having like a mother box in him,
Mm.
and us adopting that part of his history as canon now.
Right.
I think that positions Vic to be one of the most important players in the DC universe, right? And
Right.
it's just not really being explored to the degree that it could be. So if I could write more, that's where I'd be going with it. Is like let's deal with this thing inside you now.
It's very
You know?
true. It's like I want to sit down with Marquise one day because like it feels as if he definitely cares a lot about the characters that he touches and whatnot. Because even with the DCKO Titans one shot, like I had to check who wrote it real quick. Like John
Yeah,
Layman, you can
yeah,
tell that there was conversations about what you had done with Vic before he goes up against Swamp Thing. Because
yeah,
you see all these different iterations of Vic that he can choose from, but he still also retains some of the knowledge that he learned from what you're writing. And it's just
yeah,
like I love that it feels as if the writers are being heard more in this newer era of DC.
yeah,
It feels
yeah,
like you are able to have those stories that you care about. I love that you guys had that opportunity.
yeah. It's great, honestly.
It's a phenomenal, and it's like and then from there when it comes to Green Lantern, I've been like going back through like your run recently with Green Lantern Corps, and it's like I love like I said this recently when talking to Al Letson and with Evan Narcissus when it comes to like recent DC writing. It feels as if even though we see white writers, white creators like create and manifest black characters, it almost feels as if once you see a black writer come in and put their stamp on a character, it feels more genuine. Perfect example is like Jamal Campbell with Joe, or you with Joe and John Stewart. It feels like there's genuine like voices in there. Like from that perspective, where it's like even from like the first issue, I was going back through of like you and like Jeremy's run. It's like you see Joe and John interacting, and it feels genuinely like our people are talking. It doesn't feel like
Yeah,
someone's trying to manifest that energy, like how some people joke around with Milestone, where they hated Luke Cage back in the day. Like it feels as if you understand the character and you were heard in that co-writing process. What was that like having that conversation to get like those kind of voices in there like that?
yeah. No, I think that's something that's always very important for me is getting a voice right. Um, I think what was cool about me and Jeremy when we were co-writing was we don't live very far from each other, which
Oh,
is
okay.
convenient. He lives like 15, 20 minutes away from me. So a lot of times when we were at least figuring out what we were going to do, um, we would just go get lunch,
Mm,
and bring our laptops and just draft some stuff up. Sometimes I would go to his place and we'd put stuff on a big whiteboard
hmm.
and all that. But yeah, and when it comes to the actual writing process, at least for those first couple of issues, um, we really did everything together.
Right.
So we would write things and then we would punch it up together until it got to its eventual, conclusion. I think we're starting issue 4. We started doing this A story, B story thing,
Hmm.
um, and in that we actually would like go off and write the stories on our own and then come back.
Right.
Uh, so he would, I think issue 4 starts. I think that's the ride along issue with
Yeah.
Narf. So he went and did Guy and Narf, and then I did Simon and Kelly.
Yeah.
So we did that for a couple issues until the Starbreaker Supremacy, and I'm still doing that now on the book, even though it's just me having an A story and a B story, because I think it
Hmm.
helps um, give multiple people agency within one book.
Most definitely, you're juggling
You
the
know?
whole core. You have a
Yeah,
lot that you're doing, which that's even impressive in its own right. That you have to do so much with these characters. You're like teaching like a younger generation of lanterns. You're telling
yeah.
these different stories, and like I don't know how y'all do it. That's insane to try to juggle like that.
It helps that I'm a pretty boring guy outside of this, and I don't do much, but like watch TV and basketball and read other comics. So like,
Mm,
but it is hard. I'm not gonna lie, it is definitely hard work. But I think the more I do it, and I'm learning a lot on Green Lantern Corps too, because it's my first ongoing, and because like you said, there's so many characters. But the more that I do it, I'm finding my process, and I'm learning how even though it is arduous at points, like I can fall back to the craft.
Right, most definitely. Like you have that ability to lean on, and especially like it's very obvious from what you've dealt with the like milestone initiative, and like you've learned from working with these different editors, and even Jeremy. It's obvious that you didn't just think you were gonna do your own thing. It's like you want to make sure that you do your own thing while also hearing the people you've learned from. You're not just trying to think you're opinionated and you know what's better. You took to heart what you were taught versus other people.
Yeah, no, it's valid. Yeah,
I would kill for the opportunity to like to hear what David would think of like what you're doing right now because John actually feels like he's elevated to purpose. That recent issue where like the little I forget his name, like the one Blue Lantern it like just gets obliterated and you're like
oh
what
yeah,
is going on? And John is just mad. He is on fire, ready to go. And it felt like true, like understanding of that character that he wasn't going to just
yeah.
take that going down. And I loved that moment so specifically because like it felt perfect the way you did all of that. And I always joke too that I can tell when someone gets John Stewart right because I could hear Phil Lamar perfectly in that moment, and it felt like you understood that.
That means a lot, man. Like John, again, when I look at things when I do podcasts like this, and I look at my very young career in context, I'm like, wow, I really have been able to do a lot of the things that I've always wanted to very early. Like
Mm-hmm.
John was another one of my favorite characters. Growing up, I grew up on the Justice League animated show and all that,
Mm,
and yeah, like I think he was my in for this book. Absolutely, I love Green Lantern. Don't get me wrong,
for
but
sure.
knowing that this was going to be a core book, I was like, okay, at least for some of the time, I'm going to supplant John as that main character. And I think what really helped as well is John has had a very interesting, I'd say, 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going back to Jeffrey Thorne's run, and then going into Philip Kennedy Johnson's War
Mm-hmm.
Journal. Those two runs really left a lot of things to be resolved with John, that I'm definitely eating off of
Most
right now.
definitely, and, like,
Like,
even though they were
and I
short,
love
you're
it.
definitely doing something with them. It feels like you're
Yeah,
actually taking what they couldn't finish and you're doing more with it. It's beautiful the way you're doing it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and the other thing too is with John is I when I'm writing John, I'm writing him from the perspective of my father because my dad was a career Marine, 26
Yeah.
years, and he has because of course John is a Marine. They have a lot of the same sensibilities. So like I'm glad you hear Phil Lamar's voice. And if I would read the comic after I read it, I probably would too. But when
Mhm.
I'm writing it, I hear my dad's voice.
That makes so
And
much sense.
sometimes I'll even call him. I'm like, how and I'll be like, how would you approach this particular situation as a Marine?
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. But then also like I'm his son and I didn't become a Marine. I have very I'd say complicated feelings about, you know, the government and
Yeah, of course, yeah.
all that type of stuff. So I'm also, this is a bit of a spoiler, but a couple of issues down the line, I part of this journey I have John on, I really want to explore the toxic aspects of being a Marine
Mm.
and like how that's taken a toll on him all these years and he's buckling under that pressure,
Well, like that was one thing that I wanted to like talk to you about is that like I remember back when what was it? Final Crisis was around, and you had like the super SWAT Green Lanterns come in and take over a crime scene, and it was all like everything was all gloom and doom, and John was about to get in trouble because of some stuff that had happened, and now and like the prevailing narrative with the public comic book fans is all Green Lanterns are just space cops. So
Yes, yes.
like what has that talk been like with the editorial, or has there been plans to execute that concept of John, Joe, Jessica, especially in this current climate, trying to deal
Yeah,
with the idea of space cops? Granted, with the core in space, it's definitely a different dichotomy because there's aliens everywhere. But
yeah,
has there been any conversation of how people of color who are part of the core try to navigate that?
yeah. I'll say not really from editorial, but internally that's what I'm thinking of when I'm
Mm,
writing. Going back to John, that's kind of been a little bit of the goal of what these first couple issues have been since Jeremy stepped off the book.
mm,
Um, we have a John Stewart that is kind of coming back into his role as Green Lantern because, from his perspective, he hasn't been one for a minute. He's been kind of
mm-hmm.
on vacation, right?
Yeah.
He's coming back and he realized, like, I actually don't want to do this anymore. I'm happy with the peace that I've had. I found my wife again,
Mm-hmm.
all this type of stuff. Um, and he's back and he's kind of thrust into the action again. And then he sees fatality and he realizes like here's an opportunity to right a wrong, right? And I forget exactly what the dialogue that I wrote, but him letting fatality go
Mm-hmm.
with a mission to kind of also right her wrongs is me trying to explore that idea of like he says something to the effect of like clearly what we've been doing hasn't been working. We're
Right.
more than just we're supposed to be peacekeepers. We're more than I didn't say police, but we're not just your executioner type of thing. Um, Maybe it's time for us to do something a little different. So a science cell maybe isn't the place for you, but you need to atone for the things that you've done. So here's a list of the people that you've affected, and now I'm passing this on to you to go do. And then of course you see she doesn't do that, but that's kind of what I wanted to lean into it there without being super heavy handed about it.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it is something I think you know should be addressed a little bit.
Most definitely,
Absolutely.
because like it's very common with like I like to put it on blast a little bit, like with white writers, that you're just like they would just be trying to tell a fantasy story, trying to tell a
Yeah.
story from a sci-fi space angle and whatnot. But with us, everything is part of our identity, so we wear that in our writing. Like I remember, like to bring back up David with the idea of Bitterroot having to explore hatred in a big way. So with your writing, it's a matter of trying to say these people of color are stepping into a whole different world where like, yeah, like racism isn't a big topic, but they're also being viewed from a place of authority, and how would they deal with that kind of like situation like that?
Yeah. Yeah, when I wrote, I did kind of I call it a remix of John Stewart's origin story. Came
Mm,
out last year.
yeah,
Um, because it's basically the same things happen in the original, but I don't. You've probably read the original
yeah,
from the 70s. It hasn't aged very well. You
yeah,
know, he's an angry black man, you know,
yeah.
for kind of no reason. So I wanted to recontextualize that, but also respect, you know, those guys who did the origin.
Hmm.
Um, Neil Adams and Dennis O'Neil, I believe.
Yeah,
Um, but in that, like when he gets the ring, I have him say something like, you know, I've worn a uniform for somebody else. Like I'm not eager to do this again. You know, and I think that's an important thing to explore. For yeah, for especially for him and for Joe. Joe
hmm.
being a cop, you know.
Most definitely. What that damn that hit my heart. Thank you. From there, obviously, the big thing, the big topic of conversation is the thing that is on that hat
Yeah,
is the future, the past of Milestone. You were a part of the Milestone initiative. Like that was a program that was started around the time that the Milestone Returns. What was being discussed? It was the
yeah,
idea of bringing like newer creatives into the space and give them those opportunities. Like, what was that like to still like to work with like other like basically veterans to a certain extent, but also have your peers coming in and learning from these veterans to, like on
yeah,
that
man.
level.
It was an absolute dream come true. Like to this day, I'm like, I cannot believe that it happened. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I think at some point I would have always gotten into this industry.
Mm,
I don't know if I'd be here now
right.
currently though if it wasn't for the Milestone Initiative. Like I don't know if it would have happened this fast for me.
Mm,
Um, man, it was such a great time. It was one of those things like I'm just gonna say it was perfect. Like my experience from application to the end of it was perfect. Like it was one of those things you apply for and like it's you like you know this is gonna change your life if you get it.
right.
And most of the time you don't get it. I don't know how. It was a perfect storm of things, but I got it. Right. And the program itself, like, you know, it was 12 writers, 12 artists. And most of it was us kind of, you know, we would have people come in and talk to us, but we were also just being taught because we were all writing and drawing an 8-page story that eventually came out. So Amy Chu on the writer side, she was our professor. So she was we would have to turn in like a draft and then we would come in, everyone would read it. We would get notes from everyone and then from her. Um, and then we would get broader things from her about just like how to navigate this industry specifically as a writer because it's a little bit
Right.
harder for us, well, at least when we're
Yeah.
first starting out. And then on the artist side, like they were getting taught by Tom Mandrake, I believe his name. He's at the Kubert School. I think Amy is also at the Kubert School. And then it culminated with a week-long summit in Burbank at the DC offices, and that
Right.
was where like it was cherry on top, man. Like every day we were, you know, we all got flued out, as they say. I live here 20 minutes away, but they got me a hotel, which was nice. And we would just go in and have these seminars, you know, for 4 or 5 hours a day. We'd have people like, you know, someone who's a historian at DC would give a presentation. Marie Javins, editor in chief, would come in and talk to us. Editors would come in and tell us like how they would like us to pitch to them. You know, Reginald Hudlin and Dennis Coward would come in and
Oh.
you know all that type of stuff. It was great. I think the one thing coming out of the initiative that they could have done better, um, and I think we all share this sentiment, is imparting on us a little bit more about how much of our career the onus is going to be on us
Mm,
for
okay.
opportunities, right?
Got you.
And I think a lot of us coming out of the initiative were like, okay, cool. They know us now. They're going to offer us work. That's just not how comics works, man. You
Right.
got to reach out. You have to make yourself known and make yourself memorable. And like, yes, we do have the keys now. We have everybody's emails at DC,
Hmm.
but like, and again, that's not their fault, but that's just not how comics works. Unless you're like a big name that they want to get, then
Hmm.
they'll reach out to you. But like, if
Right.
you're just starting out, you got to email these people. And I
It's
think,
basically like they gave you the keys, but you got to turn the doors. Like you got to turn
right,
the knobs and open the door and figure out
yeah.
like which key fits which hole and whatnot.
I think as creators too, writers and artists, like we're very shy people. We keep to ourselves, and we don't want to
Mhm.
bother anybody. So it took even me. It took me a minute of to figure out like how do I keep reaching out because sometimes I'm sure you've heard this before. Like editors don't answer emails very much. Like
Mm.
because editors are very overworked.
For sure,
And
yeah.
they do a lot of great things, but they got a lot of stuff going on.
Mhm.
And Joe Schmo with no experience emailing them out of the blue, like it's just not at the top of their priority
Mhm.
list. And then for us writers as well, they're not going to read a script that we wrote. We have to have a completed comic for them to read.
Right.
You know what
Well,
I
like
mean? So that's harder as well.
I guess from there though, like for you, and I know like I've spoken with Jordan Clark before when it came to him working with Kelly Sudaconic, but like
Yeah.
for you when it came to pivoting into like Cyborg or even like future stories, was that like you had to submit that, or was there like at least a bridge or a training wheel to a certain extent to
Yeah.
like, hey, we'll get you in the door for the first one, but after that you gotta like do the legwork on your own kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, there was no conversation like that. I'd say I think what helped me a little bit, and not that this was like an impediment for others, but like
Hmm.
I had self-published before the Milestone Initiative.
Right. Yeah.
Going back to the David Walker thing of the advice he gave me, I had about 6 or 7 shorts to my name,
Mm.
that I could then share with people. Because I think the thing I didn't realize before the Milestone Initiative was like the editors are the door in terms of getting work.
Hmm.
So I was self-publishing and getting better as a creator and a writer, but I had no idea what to do with all that. You know what I
Right.
mean? Now I had all these things and I just went through this initiative. I can now share these stories with all the editors that I have emails for.
Hmm.
So that's what I started doing. I
Got
started
you. Okay.
emailing all the editors that I met, and I was like, "Hey, I know you know me from the initiative. I love the work that you're doing on whatever book. Here's a PDF of a couple of my stories for you to read.
Okay.
I would love to work with you in whatever capacity, And if I'm being honest, most of the people that I reached out to, it was crickets.
That's
Um,
fair.
Marquise answered me. A couple people answered me and just said, "Hey, I don't have any work right now." That's also very common.
Okay.
Um, Marquise answered me, and it's a very serendipitous thing. They were doing DC Power. They were starting to work on the first one. This
Right.
was the summer of 2023, of 2022. Sorry. I had reached out to him right after San Diego Comic Con. 'Cause that's another thing I did. I printed all my stories. I put them in one little anthology, and I gave them
Hmm.
out to editors
That's
at San Diego
so
Comic Con.
cool.
Because I was like, I'm really about this shit. You know what I mean?
Like you about to be a Jehovah's Witness running around like just hand them out. Like, are you
Yeah.
prepared
And then what I
for?
also did, because I knew they probably weren't going to save them, I sent them the PDF after the fact to follow up.
Mm,
Hey, here's the book I gave you, just in case you misplaced it. Here's a PDF.
I like that. I like that.
So I did that with Marquise, and it was a perfect storm of things. They were working on DC Power, and he told me he remembered that I love Cyborg because going back to when we were interviewing for the Milestone Initiative, they asked us outside of Milestone, what are some of your favorite characters at DC? And I probably talked about Cyborg for 15 minutes. They probably were like, okay, we get it, bro. Let's move on to the next question. But he was in that interview, right?
Mm.
So he was like, I remember you like Cyborg. We're doing this Black History Month book called DC Power. Uh, how would you like to do a Cyborg story? And I was like, before he even finished asking, I was like, yes.
See,
Um,
that sounds like how I would be with Black Lightning. That like this
yeah,
the same
yeah,
way here
yeah.
with Cyborg. It would be nonstop. That's so cool, man.
So
Like
that's how that happened. I wrote that story, and then I guess I did a decent job. So when they were wanting to do the cyborg book, they came back to me.
I love that.
So
Like from there though, it's like I like the you bring up DC Power and DC Power for all the greatness of it. It's been a topic of discussion in the community. The
mhm.
February exclusive, the February only for Black fans.
Yeah,
Like, has there been talk, especially because there isn't one this year? There isn't a DC Power 2025. Has there been anything that you have heard as to why there was no DC Power this year? But also, has there been talk or knowledge of the fan base's opinion of DC Power being the way it is, where like it feels like you only see black folks over here one time a year, you only see
yeah.
queer people one time a year during Pride Month. Like, is there a knowledge of that at DC?
I haven't had any conversations with anyone at DC about it, but there's no way that they're not aware of it. I'll say that. There's absolutely no way. They pay attention to things. Um, Your first question was what? I forgot already.
Like in terms of it, like was there a, like do you know what there was a reason why there was not one
Oh,
this year?
okay. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I mean, even as creators, obviously, we're aware of the February exclusive thing too, and I mean, at this point, like it's a fact that is that has been what's happening
Yeah.
the past couple years or more than 1,000 days, as you would put it. Yeah, I don't know. I probably shouldn't say this, but also I don't think there's an issue with me saying this. Um, and this will lead into the broader conversation that we're going to have about this.
Yes.
Is man, should I say this?
If you can't, I'm not gonna be upset. Because
I
Joseph
think no, because
Joseph
it's
straight up said
not.
on
I don't think it's
Thursday
an
that
issue.
like Joseph said straight up on Thursday that like all holds bar. I can ask what I need to ask. So like if you
Yeah.
can't say
Okay.
something, I don't want to get you in trouble. But
Yeah.
if
No, I think it's an issue. I don't think it's an issue with me saying it. I'm just very much of like I'm only a couple years into the industry. I don't want to ruffle any feathers.
right, yeah.
But it's also like this isn't like objectively this isn't a problematic thing. I don't
Hmm.
think. So I'm just gonna say it.
All right.
The milestone initiative was supposed to be called DC Power the Milestone Initiative.
Oh wow. Okay.
Uh,
That's insane. Okay.
but I think and this actually makes sense to me.
Mm.
Um, it was changed. So we started working on this book. We started having like meetings for this book last maybe April or May.
Okay.
Because a lot of it was like we had to figure things out before we started writing. So we just had like weekly meetings, just talking about things.
So this was already being
Um,
planned before Shadow Cabinet was even done. Like this was already on the
no, it was
list.
a little after Shadow Cabinet finished.
Okay,
So I think Shadow Cabinet finished like December of 2024.
I think
I
so.
think.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, you're
we
right.
started having conversations in April of 2025.
It's like sitting behind me, so my brain's trying to like remember when
Yeah,
I picked it up. But that sounds about right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, for most of that time, it was going to be a DC powered book,
Okay.
and then we got word from editorial that they were going to shift it to a new history of the DCU book. I think clearly, like honestly, it's a marketing thing,
Hmm.
and I do get that logic. And I think I don't know for sure. This is not me like
Right. Yeah. Of
saying someone
course.
said this, but in my mind, wrapping my head around it, it might be because of the February exclusive. We only get
Mm,
Black people during Black History Month, and even though this book is still going to come in Black History Month, it's not the Black History Month book.
right.
You know what I mean? And I think something that we'll also talk about the more we talk about this book is the big theme of this book is integration,
Mm,
and I think naming it New History of the DCU on the heels of Mark Waid's book just ending,
hmm.
having this book kind of be an epilogue of sorts to that
Right.
gives it a little bit more maybe validity than a DC Power title might have had in
Okay.
February. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I think
Yeah.
I like the joke that I keep making that I don't know like if you could like get your thoughts on this is that it feels as if the milestone characters are being bussed in like a school district grabbing kids from the other school district to bolster their diversity problem. It feels like DC isn't capable of putting John up there, to put Jefferson up there, like Mari up there, like give them the actual representation that was created in their own universe enough ground. Where it's like, in my opinion, I want like Vixen to be the Beyonce of the DC universe, where like Bruce Wayne's walking around with McCabe suits on and stuff like that. Like he's
Mhm.
going to business meetings with a McCabe suit on, and that way the people know more about Vixen as a character and know that she has that dominance in the industry. Or like with Jefferson, Jefferson is the first ever black character to have an ongoing in DC, but collectively only has 35 issues as a solo character. it
Yeah.
it confuses me as to why it feels like we have to bring in other people's creations from a different universe that was said to be in its own universal milestone returns back integrate into the DC universe again, because for all intents and purposes the last time we tried to integrate them into the DC universe it didn't really pan out. So,
Right.
has there been any conversation about that perspective on things, that like last time we
Yeah.
tried this, it didn't really work out. Why are we trying it again?
Yeah. I'd say to your first thing before the question about the people, the characters that already exist in the universe
Hmm.
about propping them up. I do know just having been a part of kind of two DC powers at this point, Um,
Mm,
the goal every year is to give different characters the spotlight that weren't there last year.
right.
And unfortunately for us, that means after 2 or 3 years, we've cycled through everybody, right?
Hmm.
So this year, the whole idea, even take Milestone out of it, is like, what can we do different that we haven't already done? And actually, I guess that first started last year when DC Power wasn't just a disconnected anthology of disparate stories. It was building towards something with the Power Company
Hmm.
that ultimately didn't pan out or whatever.
Right.
But that was them trying to do something different after 2 successful years of just like you know disconnected 10-page stories.
Right.
And then it came to this year with Milestone. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily the perspective that they had. It's like we have to go to the well of Milestone to
Hmm.
kind of correct the wrongs or whatever. I do think it was like, what can we do that's different that we haven't
Okay.
done yet?
Gotcha.
And I think there's been, with the Shadow Cabinet being that last book in the Milestone Returns, it was just a timing thing of like this would be a time to do it where it would have been a little bit more complicated prior to now.
Hmm.
Um, and then to your question, which again I'm so long winded I forgot your
Oh,
question.
no,
Can
you're
you
good.
repeat?
Like, so in terms of the question is that, like, has there been any conversation about the fact that, like, the last time they tried to integrate the,
Yes.
like the milestone characters in the DC universe was, like, right before the New 52, and then they kind of stayed a little bit with the New 52,
Yeah.
and then when Static ended, it just disappeared. Has there
Yeah.
been a conversation of we tried this once, it didn't work out, why are we doing it again, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Yes, that's basically the crux of what this book is is
Mm,
is from a meta contextual point of view, kind of exploring and tackling all of that.
mm,
Um, I think also with them coming that initial try of integration in the mid to late 2000s, there were a lot of intangibles as to why that wasn't as like successful as it could have been.
mm.
Um, like, I mean, a big one was just the loss of Glenn McDuffie. You
Most
know what I mean?
definitely, yeah.
And then without getting too much into it, like there was just a lot of legality things
Mm,
coming out of that is a big reason as to why we hadn't seen those characters in a
got
while.
you.
It's unfortunate, but that it was tough at the time
Mm,
for basically everybody who was a part of that. But yes, to answer your question, this book absolutely in the creation of it, we have had the conversation about like, yeah, we tried to do this before and it didn't work out. How can we do it right this time? And I'll say the answer to that question isn't even necessarily this book. It's what comes after, and of course what comes after is due to is going to be connected to the success of this book. But you want to talk about integrating, like, this is just the big bang, so to speak, this book,
mm,
right, of like bringing things back. It has to be a concerted effort of like, okay, now that it's back, we can't just have these characters on the shelf and just like
mm,
people know that they're here, they need to be seen. So I think that's going to be the challenge for DC, not the creators, because we're going to want to keep doing this stuff, but the
mm.
challenge is going to be for DC, I think, in investing in those characters, because that's the issue. Like you said, the 1,000 day thing. Like, when it comes to a black character, at the end of the day, everyone's going to point to numbers.
Right, and
You
like
know?
that's an interesting topic in its own right because like even with you, like this was 6 issues, and then
Yeah,
before that, I believe Sepper's was like 18 or something like that, or like 14,
yeah,
16, something like that, and it's like it feels as if a there's a lack of from the publisher standpoint of explaining how the system works because
that's
I found recently that when I explain to people that no, you walking into a store and grabbing it off the shelf, that's not the sale. That sale's already been counted. Your
yeah,
sale is
yeah,
irrelevant. So
yeah,
if your store, like I was at one of my local comic book stores yesterday, and he even said For the Flash book, he buys 2 for his subscribers and 1 for the shelf. And it's like, unless you're Batman, you're not getting 20, 30, 40 pre-orders just for
Right.
the
Right.
shelf. So we're fighting an uphill battle, and it feels like there's a lack of understanding from the publisher that there needs to be grace given. There needs to be a different, like a grading curve when it comes to like, hey, we see people like trade paperbacks because they're more cost effective. Maybe we should like let a book get 2, 3, 4 trades before we just like throw it to like out the door. Like,
Yeah.
has there been like, especially like I can't, I don't know if you can even like elaborate on this, but with the idea of bringing Milestone back, has there been any talk of giving a cushion like that, a grading curve where it's like maybe we'll see like an icon get 12 to 18 issues, that way it can get a volume 1 on Amazon for a little bit, etc. type of
Yeah.
thing.
No one has come to me to tell me that, but I have definitely told people that
Mm,
like this is what it needs to be.
okay.
I'm like, if because like what I'm happy about with my Cyborg run is that I knew what my complete story was, so I couldn't
Mm.
get canceled. Right? Like I can tell my complete story in my 6 issues, and I don't have to worry about something ending before I was able to resolve something.
Right.
Right? But certain characters, like a Static, they should have an ongoing.
Mm,
Like that's a big enough character for that I think could hold its own. And I think going back to the milestone returns thing, part of the shortcomings of that run or multiple runs during milestone returns is they weren't ongoings. They were 6 issue
yeah.
series or seasons, and then they'd be gone for a year and a half before the next one came out. So there
Most
was no
definitely.
momentum that could ever be built. So like I've definitely told people, I'm like, if and when we get a Static book, because that's probably going to be the first because it's Static, right?
Mm,
If and when we get that Static book, it's got to be an ongoing,
for
man.
sure.
And you gotta, I didn't say grace period, but I'm like, you need to give it time to catch the readers, right?
Mm.
And I'm always telling people too, I'm like, there's 17 Bat books on the shelves, man. You can sacrifice one of them.
Well, like I even made the joke. What was it like? If you look at the March solicitations, there's 10 to 12 Bat character or Batman books that are on
Yeah,
the shelf, and it's like that's insane. And it's
yeah.
just like Static, quite literally, was the Spider-Man of an entire generation of like fans.
I
And
say this all the time, and it may be sacrilegious, but I think Static has the notoriety that Miles has. Or
mm-hmm.
shit, Static is supposed to have the notoriety that Miles
Oh, no,
has,
I
but
agree. That's why I
the
was so upset
consistency
that
just
like
hasn't been there.
that's why I was so upset that like when Batman Deadpool happened, like yeah, the Kamala's Virgil like shot was cute. I wanted a Miles Virgil story more
Yeah.
than anything, and we didn't get that.
And then even if you go back to the OGs of Milestone, like their big thing when they made all those characters was like archetypes, right?
Mm,
Icon is a Superman archetype. Hardware is an Iron Man archetype. Static was a Spider-Man archetype.
for sure.
Like so that's been there since day one. You know,
It's very interesting that way where it's like you could easily and like I think the most heartbreaking part of it is that like right now with the DC compacts are genius because
yeah,
you're giving people cost effective ways to go back through the DC pantheon and read these different stories, but like the static milestone returns run is a DC compact, and I've had DMs and comments from people being like, "Hey, when's the next book coming out? I want to read it," and it's like,
yeah,
wah wah, like you're not getting the kid, and it just
yeah,
like yeah, you can give him Shadows of Dakota, but that's it, and it's heartbreaking and like I have hope with this. I like the term we used on the last episode of the podcast that released today was we're cautiously excited, and obviously we know from the March and April solicitations there's nothing seen, and like you even said, the success of the book is what matters. Like,
yeah,
obviously you can't say too much, but it's like what is there hope to be had is the idea like sort of the question that I'm kind of like posing here, where like is there hope to be had, is there hope in the DC office that this might be a time to actually like get things going and actually have that grace period, that strength behind this, and actually matter this time, because like you said with Milestone Returns, the loss of momentum hurted. Is there
Yeah.
a hope that there can be momentum this time?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't, no one said anything concrete, but I do think the goal of this book from everyone, top down, not just the creators, but editorial too, is to get to that point, right? That we can give this character or these characters a book down the line. Um, but I do think it's going to be a bit of a waiting period. I don't think it's going to be a year or two or
Mm,
five, but
right,
like, I don't think you're going to be seeing stuff in solicitations for a couple months if it happens. It's got to be it's like comics is weird. It moves fast. It also moves slow at the same
right,
time.
yeah,
Um, yeah, there's nothing concrete, but I do think the goal of this book in the creation of it is to get that ball rolling.
okay,
And I think that is coming from editorial.
okay,
So they're doing it. This is my perspective of it.
I got you
They're kind of doing something that they did with me on Green Lantern Corps. They started me with Jeremy Adams. Jeremy Adams is a big name at DC,
for sure.
um, who's very popular and his books do well. They needed a reason to give me an ongoing on paper. They wanted to invest in me, but I didn't have anything that they can point to being like Morgan is on a book that sells well.
Hmm.
I was now I'm on Green Lantern Corps and it sells well. Now we can give Jeremy an off ramp because we can look at on paper that this book is selling well and Morgan's name is on it. I think that is what this book is supposed to be for Milestone.
Okay,
It is supposed to be, look, here is a metric we can look at that this is going to be successful. And if it is, then that will give them the determination or the idea or whatever to take a chance on giving a character an ongoing. And hopefully
right,
it is an ongoing. Hopefully it's not just a mini series.
okay,
But I think that the book, it really is, it hinges on the success of this.
okay,
Um, and that's dependent on what comes next.
all
I know
right.
that's annoying,
No,
but
no, I
I
get.
think that,
I most definitely get it. I think it's just maybe this is like my like jaded angry black man perspective, but it's like y'all waited to the last minute to like put like to like put all this force behind it. Like Joseph even released a trailer, and I was like
yeah.
blown away by how cool that was.
I'll
And
tell you this. I'll tell you this too. And this is not a thing that's just for this book. This is comics in general.
right,
Comics has an issue with marketing. They don't market their books. It's
yeah.
really it's 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 the onus of the creators,
Hmm.
and it's like we don't get paid for that. We just have to do it because if our book stops selling, we don't have a job anymore, right? So
Right.
the big push really came from us,
Hmm.
unfortunately. And even then it was kind of late, like you said. It's just because we got 7,000 like hands in the fire doing other things. But
Hmm.
we got a post from I guess there's two DC
There's two DC accounts
accounts
now.
now. I didn't realize that. I thought that DC Comics account was a fake account.
Yeah.
I thought it was all DC official. I thought DC
Yeah.
official was the main account.
Right.
And now I know DC Comics is just the comics account. So it does look
Hmm.
like they're trying to do more comics marketing. And I've been seeing
Right.
they've been doing interviews with creators and stuff. But like, yeah, we had a house ad for the Dakota incident, and that came out on Friday.
Oh
Like we
wow.
should have had that earlier this month or
Well,
last
like
month.
I was even saying that like it was like you, Stephanie, Joseph, and Nick all posted the trailer, but then it was
Mhm.
like, why isn't the DC account posting the trailer? It was like
Yeah,
it feels and like I even like to your point of you guys having to be the ones to self market. I remember when Milestone Returns was going on, and you saw Nick and Vita, y'all were like they were out there going, hey, FOC is happening, FOC, like they're like sounding the doomsday alarms, and it felt
yeah,
like no one listened because no one ever really chooses to explain what FOC is to the average consumer. And it has been so heartbreaking in the past few months, like coming back into the space and explaining how this works to people because
yeah,
there's a lot of fans that think digital matters, that think them
yeah,
walking into a shelf matters. And I feel like maybe there needs to be a conversation had with editorial or with marketing. Like maybe there needs to be like a hand on the shoulder moment of like, sorry kid, your digital read doesn't matter, or like we don't value it as
yeah.
much. Like, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I'm as annoyed as you are,
Mm,
you know. Like again, coming from when I used to be on your side of the table too, like seeing books get canceled just because people don't understand that.
Yeah.
I think also the thing that frustrates me is why does it have to be that way? Like, why is
Mhm.
this the only way, the only metric of success for a book? Like, it's a very, I think, antiquated system that
Mhm.
still in this day and age in 2026, like pre-orders are the only thing that is looked at by a
Mhm.
publisher. That sucks, you know?
Yeah.
That it truly sucks. Like there's gotta be I don't know off the top of my head what that what it could be, but I feel like there needs to be some type of change to the system. Or like why can't digital count?
Right.
Because in my mind, I don't know. I'm not in this like like someone whose job it would be for this, but in my mind, digital should be free money.
You would think, yeah.
You don't have to print or distribute, but someone is
Mhm.
giving you the same. It's the same price, right? Five
Yeah.
bucks for why is that not? I mean, maybe you'd have to split it with whatever service it's on,
Mhm.
right? But like, or whatever service it's being bought through. But like, even so, that's money you wouldn't have otherwise.
Mhm.
So sure, you can take 250 from split it from the digital copy you got from Amazon or Comixology or whatever. I don't know why that doesn't count.
Right.
Truly, I do not understand.
Uh,
Especially, how, I do think at this point, I don't think print media is going anywhere,
mhm.
but we are definitely in a digital age now, and from an accessibility standpoint, it gets people to read comics to read it digitally.
Almost
Why
definitely,
can't?
yeah, like, I'm the guy that I will collect my books because I know that
Yeah,
pre-order matters, but then I walk around the house with the iPad, like, all
yeah,
yesterday, like, once you said you were down, I ran through Green Lantern Corps again, just off the Ultra, off the DC Infinite, and
yeah,
it's so refreshing to have that kind of method, because I remember when Comixology, like, first kicked off, it was a very archaic system, but now it feels as if the publishers understand that, like, having that kind of subscription model matters, but, like, there's people in other countries that see books and they don't understand why. Or like I remember last year when Green Arrow was getting canceled, and everybody like was so angry at Scott Snyder for like doing the hand on the shoulder, like, "Well, kid, you didn't buy the book enough," and they didn't understand because they were reading digitally, they were buying the trades, and it
yeah,
felt like their dollar didn't matter, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. It's very antiquated. Yeah, again, I don't know what the fix is, but I think getting a share of the digital revenue would help at the
Hmm.
very least.
Most
I will
definitely.
say the thing that's helped, and to give Scott some credit as well, Scott and Josh and all those guys doing like the absolute stuff, like
Hmm.
that stuff. It's a whole high tides rise all boats type of thing.
Yeah.
Their stuff is so successful that it's letting everybody else have longer runs. Like
Hmm.
Green Lantern Corps being announced, not renewed or extended, but being announced as an ongoing at the
Hmm.
time had was like unheard of.
Right.
Like we don't get announcements for ongoings anymore. Like that was a 10 years ago thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a credit to how successful the absolute stuff is. Like that stuff, what they make like $8 million or something like that,
Something like
or
that,
sold
yeah.
8.5 million copies or whatever. Like that stuff
They're on
is
the
what
10th
really
printing of
helps.
the of Absolute Batman
Yeah,
alone, which is insane.
that stuff from a very like different route is what's helping these other things be successful because
Mhm.
it's giving us the ability to have longer runs, giving DC the ability to take more chances on books that maybe they would be a little bit more trepidatious on in the past. Like that is very much being helpful. But at the end of the day, yeah, everything is still about pre-orders.
Okay. So, we saw recently on social media that Stephanie Williams is trying to manifest Vixen. What's a book that like not that you like that you want to manifest? Like, are you the one gunning for Virgil, or like what's a book that you're manifesting for 2026? Yeah. Like, oh, it'd be
The hat right
beautiful.
here, man.
Oh,
Yeah, of course, I have absolutely no control
of course,
over
yeah, no.
any of that. Um, maybe me being a part of this book helps. I don't know,
Hmm.
ushering in the milestone characters back into the DCU. But it is on my manifestation list of
Mm,
like a character that I don't just want to write, but need to write.
mm,
Like if I just chart my history, my comic book history, like I know I mentioned Tangent Comics, but like I grew up on the Static Shock TV show.
same.
Once I actually got into comics, like it was really hard back in the day, but I was digging for all the milestone stuff I could find because
Hmm.
they don't
Same.
out of those original runs, there's not many trades.
There
right?
wasn't for a hot minute.
Think
The
this,
compendiums
like,
finally just fixed it, but like there was I
yeah,
had like half the back issues for a long time that I
yeah.
had to sell them.
When I was a kid, the only trades that were out, they collected 2 editions for hardware, and it wasn't even, or not hardware, Icon,
Yeah,
and it wasn't even the full run. It was like maybe the first 18 issues or
yeah,
whatever,
something
and
like
that was
that.
it.
Yeah.
Everything else was like stuff I had to dig through at long boxes at conventions and stuff. Um, so yeah, I was reading all that growing up, watching Static Shock. Um, and then of course like they integrated at DC briefly. So like when he was on Static was on the Titans and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I broke in on the Milestone Initiative. Like
Mm-hmm.
Milestone is what got me into comics professionally. And I was just talking to, we have a group chat, everyone on this book, or the writers do. So me, Nick, Steph, and Joe. I was telling them yesterday, me and Milestone are almost the same age.
Yeah.
The first issue of Hardware, which was the first Milestone book to come out,
Mm-hmm.
came out February 25th, 1993,
Yeah.
which was a Wednesday. I was born that following Monday on March 1st.
Whoa.
So we're like twins almost. You know what
Right.
I mean? So and I've been, like I said, I've been on your side of the table growing up. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up as that first iteration of them trying to integrate and then seeing it fall apart, and then we
Mm-hmm.
didn't see anything. um, except for the New 52 Static that we don't talk about very
We
much.
don't we don't talk about
Yeah. So
that.
I've been wanting this since then. I'm like, not just wanting to write it, but like I need these characters back. I need these
Mm.
characters back. I remember when Milestone Returns happened, before the Milestone Initiative was even announced as a thing. I was like, damn, I didn't do the work that I needed to do to get to be a
Mm.
part of this. I was like really upset.
Right.
And I break into the Milestone Initiative. I lucked into being able to be part of this group to usher in these characters back to the wish fulfillment of I had when I was 14 or 15, wanting these characters to be back. Like it's a perfect time, you know. And the people that are in control of this know that I want this. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not,
Of
that's not
course,
a
yeah,
secret.
no.
But it's ultimately not up to me. But I would love
Right. Right,
to.
and what's so like cool about it, like your story is insane because like I have a similar thing to where Jenny Isabella rebooted Black Lightning the same year I was born, so like it's almost
Man,
like that same kind of vibe with it,
that's
and
cool.
it's crazy because like I know you care just as much as me because you very much wear your millennial energy on your sleeve because like oh randomly Atlas is the cyborg book like fully
Right, right.
off the TV show no changes I'm like huh? Like you, like he didn't talk like Keith David, but like he still had that
Right.
vibe, and I was like, all right, like this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
cool. Or like recently we saw Nick bring it like make Richie fully canon in like the Batman
yeah,
Static stuff, and it's like just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Or like, or
yeah.
even with you, the fact that you put Aya and Razor in the core book, I was like, you just knew, though you didn't have him be the fusion lantern from Young Justice, and I was a little sad about that. But but otherwise, it's very obvious that y'all wear the millennial energy on your chest proudly, and I love that. Like, cause it's the
Thank you.
same thing when Scott Snyder said like saying, hey, what like team of the league do y'all want on my book? And everyone said JLU, and he was like, sure, fine, whatever. It's like y'all care and you want to see your generation have that representation in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think that's what needs to be for whatever comes next after this book. Like, and a lot of us were on this book, you know, Steph, Nick, and I in particular, and even
Mm,
Joe. Like Joe Illidge was an editor at Milestone back in the day,
right.
and then became a very famous Batman editor in the early 2000s.
The first ever black editor, which is
Yeah,
insane.
yeah, man, it's crazy. And like he now he's made that turn to writer, right,
Mm,
over the past couple of years, and he gets to kind of reap some of the benefits of the work that he did 30 years ago, which is really cool.
right.
Um, so yeah, I think that's what these characters need through this integration process. Is it needs someone who loves it, you know. It
Yeah.
needs someone who grew up with it and was affected by it, and who can pour back into it. You know, I think that's important.
All right. So the thing that we do at the end of every episode is like a final statement. Like what is the statement you want to give to the fans to to leave them with when it comes to this book, when it comes to like the future of what like representation in comics or what you want to leave folks with just in general. Like give a really big final statement that you can leave folks with.
Yeah, I'd say we've been talking about it a lot. Pre-orders are so important. Um, so I'd say that any book that you're interested in, pre-order, 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 and not just the first issue. Like have it on your pull list, because the other thing about that too is like pre-orders for the first issue may be great, and then there's always a massive drop off for the second one. That's normal. It's
Right.
how bad is the drop off going to be, right? What's the median going to be? So pre-order and have it on your pull list. But also, I'd say like we hear you and we appreciate you. Like we're in a position where we get to actually affect what's going on with these characters, but we're fans as well. We understand a lot of the frustrations because we have them ourselves, and we're
Mhm.
doing what we can to kick that ball down a little bit to get this to a point of where it needs to be. But I'd say a final thing is just thank you, because I do think, and thank you specifically too. I I don't know for sure, but I think it's got to be impossible that the Marvel and DC don't know about this 1,000 day thing, since it's become such a big thing. Like, and now it's just about like, what are you going to do about it?
Well, like
You know?
it's crazy too because like we're crossing we crossed 1,000 days with DC. Now that
Yeah,
Miles his book is in it with Cody Ziegler, we've I almost made a whole different video where it was like start the clock because a storm is considered a mini because they told Beruewa one thing, but then it showed as of five on the solicit. And then T'Challa doesn't have an ongoing, so it's like what's going on with Marvel, and it's like it breaks my heart to see what's going on right now because I genuinely
yeah,
feel like we are in an age where these fans are like clamoring for something. We had a whole
yeah,
reporter have the gumption to ask James Gunn when a Static movie was coming. We're still
yeah,
waiting on the Milestone animated movie that's left in the ether, and it's just like,
yeah,
when are we going to get the same kind of push? Like, and I get kind of frustrated when some people will comment like, "What about Absolute Green Lantern?" It's like that book matters, obviously. Like Al Ewing is putting his heart and soul into that book, but why do we only get an offshoot? Why do we only get like a different universe? Why are we not able to like, have standing
yeah,
ground in the main universe? But I appreciate that you guys are trying and that you do hear us.
yeah. I'd also say I think this is why, I mean, we say this phrase all the time, but representation matters. And excuse me, having people in the room matters,
Mm,
because I can guarantee beyond a shadow of the doubt that with no people in the room, no one is even thinking about how big of a deal that there's no black ongoings, right?
right.
Like I guarantee, publishers and editors, and I don't even mean it from a malicious standpoint. It's not even something that they are putting thought into. It doesn't cross their mind,
Right.
right? So, and that's a bad thing. But it takes, having people in the room in editorial, in marketing, to push for that stuff. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what Marquise is definitely doing. I don't know if Marvel has any black editors, if I'm being honest.
I actually I would have to look into it, but I would love to sit down with him one day. He followed me on Threads the one day, and I would love to sit down with him. Like
Nice.
everyone always speaks highly of him.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's great.